SEO This Week, episode number 25. Well, we're coming to you from our brand new domain. That's right, we had to rebrand. Here's what happened. The old site crashed, and the backup was actually even bad. So rather than spend an entire day trying to figure it out, rebuilding our database, all that madness, we took the opportunity to do something we wanted to do anyway, which was rebuild our brand and rebrand the site. Now this gives us a couple things. One, we don't have that exact match domain, so we kind of lose on the exact match traffic that we had. And two, we dropped a few of the rankings that we had too. The positive side is those rankings are already coming back with minimal amount of backlinking to the website, which is a good thing. And two, we don't have to worry about over-optimizing anchor text. And three, we can actually target and spread out some more cities without having to have, the Olympia SEO brand and then trying to rank for, Portland SEO or Tampa SEO. It makes it a little bit easier for us. So that's a good thing. The downside is episodes 1 through 24 for SEO this week are gone. So we get to start all over. I could have used the cache, or I could have used the archive.org or Google Cache to rebuild those. However, it just really didn't seem to be a useful, something good for our useful use of our time, as it were. A lot of usefuls in there. So we went this route. We're going to start over. We're starting at episode number 25. If you got the SoundCloud, if you're on the podcast or you keep up with us on YouTube, then you have access to all the other episodes too. But if you're on the website, then welcome to the new look. As you can see, we got rid of the long banner that we typically have, and we're just using our featured image in this same theme that we did, and just kind of took some different entities are censoring the content that I read. And what is surprising is it's major media outlets, CBS, Fox, CNN, ABC, all saying that something needs to be done about fake news, because fake news was what led to the election of Donald Trump. So we need to put a stop to it. But fake news wasn't a problem before the election of Donald Trump. So is it a Democratic Party stance that fake news is what caused the Democratic Party the presidential election, or is fake news actually a real problem? In my opinion, as a purist to the Constitution, I would say that it is not the government's job. It is not a corporate entity's job to filter what I read. It is my job to use common sense and my own education and upbringing to base my opinions based off of what I think are facts, or what are indeed facts, or presented as facts, and then be able to be considered intelligent enough to figure out that something is purely opinion and conjecture. So I'm hoping that the community will kind of jump on my bandwagon, as small as it may be, and stand up to the established corporate people who are using their platforms to censor people, whether we agree with them or not. In our country, everyone has a right to express their opinions. And hopefully that spreads everywhere around the world. I think everyone has a right to express their opinions. And we should all have the right to be able to see it. And we shouldn't have to worry whether Google, Facebook, Twitter, or anyone else is filtering that, especially on the internet. Now, if they're paying for a print newspaper, for example, then by all means, censor it away. Put what you want on there and go for your thing. But, this is... Google is filtering out websites out of their search results, and I don't think it's right. And second thing I have with problem with this is there's human quality relators, and they're filtering out in my perspective as an American, they're filtering out websites, and they have a historically high international workforce. So people from other countries are censoring what we as Americans can read and have access to via Google. So, where is this going to come? Where's it going to go into the future? I have no idea, but at some point, I think we're all going to end up start looking for a new search engine that doesn't use their position in the market to A, censor what we read, and B, to impose their political influence on it. So, end of the rant. You can read this yourself, make your own opinions. I'd certainly love to hear your opinion on the topic. Next is Ahrefs blog, and this is evergreen content and how updating an old post boosted page views by 468%. So first, let's talk about what evergreen is. Basically, it's a piece of content that is going to be relevant pretty much no matter what you do. So, like the best Christmas present for 2017 is probably not evergreen content, but how to change a toilet seal, that's evergreen content. So unless they change plumbing in the near future, that's going to be a few years. It's going to be valuable to you, and you can go in there and update some new tweaks, new things that you learn, and all that other stuff. But essentially, that content will last you forever. And the point behind this article is that you should look at your evergreen content that you created. Let's say you created a bunch of articles last year, and go back in there and refresh them, add some new stuff, fine-tune, maybe you catch some grammar stuff you didn't see, and then change the dates on your post, and it's going to boost the views because it's fresher and it's still relevant. So check it out. Check out this post. Think about what you have for your evergreen content. There is some ideas in here on evergreen content that you could make, and think outside of the box as a business owner, and you'll be able to come up with something that will always stand the test of time. If 2-3 years, that's a good benchmark. Don't look for something that's going to last 10 years. Nothing lasts 10 years, but 2 or 3 years is good, and you create 30-40 articles of evergreen content like this, and keep maintaining that. You don't need a whole lot. A wonderful example in the SEO space is a website called Backlinko. The Brian Dean is the owner of that site, and he's posted 38 articles on his site, and he generates hundreds of thousands of views. It's traffic, other SEOs, including ourselves, are jealous over, just with 38 articles. So he's doing outstanding evergreen content, and he's not doing a whole lot of it, and he's still ranking for multiple hundreds of thousands of keywords, just with 38 articles. So think about that. Think about how you can leverage evergreen content and refresh some of your old stuff. Next, from HubSpot, this one's 20 YouTube tricks, hacks, and features you want to know about. Some good things in here, like you can use the transcripts to create content. You have Creative Commons videos. You can see that. You can see free translations for your videos in there, and there's some ways to actually pull that off. One thing I do want to point out in here, and at the time of this writing, it was a valid thing to do, but now it's not. Like, it's an example how quickly the internet changes. But you're talking about adding annotations and making those so that you can add clickable links to your website, where you click an annotation and it'll take you to your website from the video in YouTube. Well, with the advent of YouTube cards, more people are actually using cards. One, because they look better, and two, they get a higher click-through rate because they show properly on mobile and the desktop, versus annotations don't show on mobile anymore, from what I could tell. Also, frankly, annotations just, in my opinion, they make the videos look ugly. They're annoying, just as annoying as Google's display ad at the bottom of the thing, and you got to close that all the time. So I like this move of ending annotations. Now, let's say you are in love with annotations. You got 1,000 videos on there. Buy yourself a tool like vidIQ or TubeBuddy. is what it's called, and you can edit and add annotations to all your videos all at once. Get that done before the change is implemented, because it's coming very quickly to where you will not be able to add annotations to new videos. All existing videos with annotations, they will stay on there, but you will not be allowed to edit them. So again, if you got a lot of videos that you're leveraging annotations with and you want to continue to do that, then go ahead and make those changes now before they lock them in. The next is we're going to Moz, and this is Google algorithm penalties still happen. And basically, what's a big question in our industry is whether the disavow tool actually works or not. And you can kind of get 50-50 mix on both sides, saying that it does and then others saying that it doesn't. Google came out with the disavow tool as a way for webmasters to tell Google about spammy links, and then under the benefit of you telling them that, they're going to essentially, from what I can see, is they no-follow the links, and then they say, all right, we're going to filter those out. You're not going to get penalized for having them because you told us about them and told us to disavow them. And in recent days, well, months, in September 2016 to be exact, Gary Isles of Google and a reporter, what's his name here, Barry Schwartz of Search Engine Land, they talked on Facebook, and Gary Isles said, hey, you don't have to use the disavow file anymore. Our algorithm is smart enough to know about what are spammy links, and you don't need it anymore, and just let Google Penguin do it for you, and you'll be good. We just won't count them. We won't penalize your site, but you just don't worry about it. Don't do it anymore. Well, clearly, Michael Cottom here has presented a case study where that is not the facts at all. He submitted a disavow tool, and the traffic, I don't want to say doubled, looks more like quadrupled, from the point of when the file was submitted to the time the changes took place. So I would argue, and will continue to argue, that this disavow file works. This is yet another person who's proved that it does work. So how do we prove it? We're actually setting up a test. Josh Barczynski, I know I said his name wrong, but we were on his show a couple weeks ago, White Hat versus Black Hat. And what we're going to do is he's going to create a site, and I am going to spam it, and we're going to track all the URLs from the spam, and then we're going to submit all of those URLs to the Google disavow file to see what happens. One, we want to see the spam, how much spam will rank a page, at which point will the spam cause the page to drop, and then at which will the disavow file recover the drop from the spam. I think it's going to be an interesting test. It'll be a little hard to manage because we'll have to hit it campaign at a time, and then find out where the ranking point is, and then keep continuing that a campaign at a time to find out where the tipping point is in the penalties phase to kick in, and then finally, once that tipping happens, then we got to find when or how much we have to add to the disavow file. Can we add it up, all the links up to the tipping or from the tipping point and beyond, or do we go back a couple campaigns back and see, at which point basically do we get to call it a recovery? This is going to be interesting, so stay tuned on that. Next is the Search Engine Journal, best practices for setting up meta robots and tags, or meta robot tags, and the robots TXT. Let me tell you, even the best SEOs, every one of us has messed up the robots text file. There's just no way around it. Sometimes you're going to put an extra character in. Sometimes you're going to put something in there you didn't mean to do. It's just going to happen. So don't beat yourself up about it if you found out you messed up your robots text tag. Everyone's done it. I've done it. Everyone, pros who are way better at SEO to me have see some things that you can do with it. More specifically, what you can hide inside of your website. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, or you're a little bit scared or tedious about doing this stuff, then leave your robots text file alone. But if you do know what to look for in your code and your URL structures, like the examples that are given here, to go ahead and get the bot to avoid crawling them and not index them, then go ahead and knock this out. It's a great tool to use, and you can do it in the robots.txt file. If you're using WordPress, you can actually use Yoast, and that'll teach you how to do it as well. And you can, again, here's some examples where you can do it by URL, you can do it by parameter type, and there's so much more. So I would check this blog post out. Again, though, if you do it and you want to try to replicate some of the stuff that he's got going on in here, I would recommend that you go ahead and type it all out and then give it to someone who's is really good at tech. Going to look at another article from Moz. It's about ranking correlation study, domain authority versus brand search volume. Now, if you're in the correlation is not causation camp, then this probably an article is not for you. However, I like these correlation studies because it gives us a great starting point to develop tests in order to find causation. And without a starting point, really, you're just kind of, hunting and pecking in the dark. The study here is looking at domain authority versus branded search volume. And more to the point, if a site has a lot of domain authority, will it in turn get more branded search volume? Or if it gets a lot of branded search volume, will it have a higher domain authority? Here, I think this probably came about. It doesn't. The author doesn't say, but I would meaning to bet that the author is seeing what I am seeing, and that is the bigger the brand, the more likely it is going to take over in the search results. Even if a local person can even see that, like Thumbtack, it's a Google-owned property, and it happens to be in all of the contractor spaces. Go figure, right? Home Advisor is the same way. Yelp, these are all big brands, big brand directories that are leveraging both small businesses and their users in order to increase ad spend. And Google is favoring them because they is it because they have a big brand, or is it because they're huge gigantic directory sites, or is it because they have domain authority? I think a little bit of all of that is in there, especially with Thumbtack. You can actually probably say Google owns part of Thumbtack, so there's probably a vested interest in them being successful, so we're going to give them credit for more local rank spacings, which in turn pushes out small businesses. That's neither here nor there. It's not related to this article. Here, the author goes through and does the results, and I'll kind of just show you here is the branded search volume is better correlated with rankings than domain authority is. So, what is that saying? If your brand has a lot of searches for its brand name and a product combined, you are more likely to rank for that product than because people are searching for Walmart / television, Walmart camera versus just Walmart, and it's being related, and they go into and search the camera, if that makes sense. So a mom and pop photo shop will, if they want to leverage this, they need to get people to search for mom and pop Sony Alpha camera model blah blah blah, and continue to search for mom and pop cameras, mom and pop digital cameras, mom and pop camera lenses, and those types of branded searches will increase your overall rankings. Now, this is a correlation, but it's assuming that because those type of branded searches are happening, you're getting more specific traffic for specific terms, and in so much as Google sees that, they are now thus ranking you for the camera terms. The Sony Alpha keyword without your brand name, because they're correlating that your store is about that camera or those camera types based off of the increased branded volume search. How do we test it? It's a good question. One, you can create some micro worker things and get people to go visit or search for your brand, and then see where it happens with your rankings. You can try some software and do it. It's interesting thing that we probably have to brainstorm and figure out a little bit, but it gives us a great starting point. And so what we're looking at now is, when you're doing your SEO, is it good to, how does this apply to anchor text, for example? Is it good to do brand web design, or web design city, or brand web design city, or city web design brand type anchor text? So this is something that a correlation that is proven in his study that we could probably duplicate by duplicating his test and verify in a triple blind test. And then turn that into a causation study and see where we can leverage this knowledge, not only in traffic generation, but maybe even our anchor texts, and see where that goes for the future of local rankings. Next, we look at KISS metrics, and this is why ClickBank works. Fact of the matter is, ClickBank headlines have worked for a long time. They even went so far in this article, I think it's pretty cool, as to find an ad from 1927 where they used clickbait articles to generate traffic, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot of sites that are actually doing this very well. One that was cited in here is BuzzFeed. So you kind of go to BuzzFeed, look at their headlines, and get some ideas. This article actually even goes a little bit further and gives you 3 formats to creating some clickbait, i.e. the news jack, the hot topics, and then the cliffhangers, and some examples of those types of headlines. Use this in your emails. You can check this on your website and try it in your social media, and see, test these headlines and see how they work to driving traffic to your pages, and you can kind of see where your market is finding a acceptable level of clickbait. Just remember, though, if you use these type of headlines, you potentially can generate a lot of traffic, and if the people get to your website and are completely left dumbfounded because your headline does not, or your content does not live up to the headline, then you're going to have some problems being able to replicate it over and over again. So use these sparingly or just be strategic about your use of clickbait headlines in the best way to generate traffic, in meaning with the requirements of creating high quality content, so that the traffic that you get there is actually happy with you and wants to come back, or potentially even link to your site. Next, we stay on KISS metrics, and we look at how to turn Facebook cold traffic into hot leads. There are thousands of articles about Facebook ads. You can't miss them. I think we've all heard them ad nauseum. Oh, you should be using Facebook ads to generate leads. Well, duh. And not very many people actually go the extra mile to tell us how to do it. And more specifically, how to turn cold Facebook traffic, which is pretty much anyone on Facebook. They're not going there to buy. They're going there to hang out and look at cat videos. And so now they're cold traffic, and how do you turn them into hot leads? So basically, the short version of this article, and I highly suggest you go read this one, is actually really good, is to take an ad and make the ad about something that you're going to solve a problem. So how-tos, or getting by, or learning how to, or discover this, or watch this, and then put a retargeting pixel on your site, and then using that retargeting list to actually approach and target them for other more specific offers because they've already been to your site. So now they know you already. If they were there long enough to get a retargeting pixel, they probably trust you to some extent, and then you start advertising your actual offers versus your how-to content. This is a great article. Again, I suggest you, if anything, implement the retargeting and get started with that right away. And next is the LSA Insider, and this is how will the Internet of Things impact local search? This is a popular article. That's why we highlighted it. However, let me go ahead and just say I think it leaves a lot to be desired in the meat of the argument of what they're talking about. So how does the Internet of Things, which includes as many things as like your the electronics that control your house lights, your refrigerator that you can take pictures and order stuff from the internet off of. Those are all the Internet of Things. And as our world gets a lot more connected, there's more things that get added to the Internet of Things. And how does that affect local search? I think the topic is a good one, but the author kind of missed the mark on it. And in my opinion, the Internet of Things is more specific, and where she was going with this should be how our voice search going to affect local marketing. So things like Cortana or Google and Siri and the Amazon home device, those are all using voice search. And how does voice search going to affect local marketing? And I think it's how is voice search going to affect search engine optimization. And the answer as our industry we come up is start providing content that addresses the way instead of searching for blank or specific keyword search to make our content so that we're addressing things that would be spoken, like phrases that would be spoken in a search thing. I don't know that is really all that necessary, though, because Google has released another patent to show what they're doing, which is essentially filling in the blanks. And they've already started using this in AdWords, so if it's in AdWords, it's in the search results as well. Where if you have a search phrase, buy used cars, or buy used cars to Olympia, Washington, it's going to give you the same results as buy used cars in Olympia, Washington, or where to buy used cars in Olympia, Washington, because the algorithm and AI is smart enough to know that all three of those are asking the same question in just a different format. So one would be voice search, and the other one would be desktop search, for instance, or a mobile search. So how will the Internet of Things impact local? I think it's going to make it better, assuming Google stops giving preference to these huge, big sites that are advertising using Google AdSense programs or Google advertising programs, and actually starts delivering results for the local small businesses that are in the area. The impact of local search from the Internet of Things and voice search could be great for small businesses. I think it'd be great for Google, but for right now they're so focused on making another dollar that they've lost their way in that sense. So I think with the Internet of Things impact on local is going to make a lot more or different search engines providers that see the writing on the wall, what Google's doing, and how it is ruining their reputation, and they're going to fill that gap very quickly. DuckDuckGo, and even potentially Bing, if they take advantage of Google's missteps with local, I think that they would greatly increase their search, their percentage of the search market, and force Google to reevaluate where they're going. And finally, we're going to look at Stone Temple, and this is another case study. And does Google use Chrome to discover URLs? So basically, their hypothesis is that if someone goes to a URL in Google Chrome, Google is now getting that data back, and then they're using that data to go to your website. And the tinfoil hat crowd would be all over this, saying, yep, that's how they're doing it. As a matter of fact, Rand Fishkin did a study and said 69% of people believe that's exactly what happens. And then another 19 said with enough traffic. So you do the math on there. What is that? 88% of the people think that yes, Google uses Chrome to discover and crawl new web pages. However, the test shows that's not the case. So they sent traffic to some pages that weren't indexed under specific guidelines to the testers, and the result was that Google never came to the test pages and it never indexed them. So this is a great case study to show the tinfoil hat people that Google is not doing that, regardless of what you think that they're doing. And this is just a way to, there's a test here that you can duplicate, I'm sure, and see for yourself and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that is not the case. And it's just another point that and marketers should always be testing and never fall into the let's follow the popular thoughts about things and go ahead and find out what the real deal is. So with that being said, that is episode 25 of SEO This Week. If you hear some pops in the recording and stuff, I apologize for that. We had to start and stop a few times. But I thank you for listening. I hope you like the new website. I hope you like the format. We're getting the podcast actually embedded onto the page. We're going to get that submitted to Google Play and to the Apple Store here soon enough. And I look forward to the many years, hopefully, that we can keep the show going for you and listening to your comments and your suggestions. And from Digitaleer, have a good week.